good news coming out of the UK. And I think we can look to what George Galloway has done as a model of what we could do in this country for any type of third party movement. Yesterday, George Galloway made a huge announcement. This is something he's been planning, I guess, for quite some time. Now, you know, George Galloway did win through the Workers' Party. It's a third party in the UK. He did the damn thing, scared the hell out of Rishi Sunak, the prime minister of the UK. He was like, oh no, how in the hell did this guy come in and win? And it makes you wonder what is changing in the UK for the people there. Well, let's start from the beginning before we get to his announcement so you can understand what is going on. So as you know, in the UK, let me pull myself out. As you know, in the UK, they actually cannot vote for the prime minister, right? So the way that it works is the king and in the past, the queen would actually, recommend, they would select someone that they think would be good for a prime minister. And then it goes back to the parliament and they would vote whether or not they want that person to be the prime minister or not. It's different in the United States, right? We vote for the president here. In the UK, they don't actually get to vote for the prime minister. Well, George Galloway came up with a strategy with his Workers' Party and apparently now is putting it into motion. Let's go back to when he announced this. This was just about, I think, a month or so ago, where he said, I'm running for prime minister. Listen to this.
But I'll be leading scores of parliamentary candidates and potentially hundreds. And of course, if they were all to be elected, I might have enough support to become the prime minister. But unfortunately, in this country, we don't elect the prime minister directly. If we did, we might be better off. We've got a prime minister for whom nobody at all voted at any level anywhere. He was not even elected by his own members of parliament. But our prime minister is appointed by the king, if he's still there, on the basis that they can command the loyalty, the majority loyalty on the floor of the House, which would be of the order of 325, 326 MPs. It's exceedingly unlikely that that will ever be me. What I'm concentrating on trying to achieve is that it is not clear who has got the majority of seats, who will be able to form a government. In other words, I'm trying to bring about a hung parliament in which people like me, like you, will have some negotiating room, will have some trading room to give our vote 4 p.m. to the person who acknowledges and accepts and is ready to implement some of the key demands that we have, the foremost of which is peace, an end to Britain's role as a perpetual warmonger, as the tail of the American war dog. But there are many other demands that we have also. So thanks, James, for your kind thoughts. I am running to be Prime Minister in the sense that I will be leading a long, long list of Workers' Party parliamentary candidates. And if they were all to be elected, well, then we'd be flying. But I'll be leading.
So that is huge. So let me explain what he's trying to do. He's trying to get hundreds of Worker Party candidates in Parliament, right? So we know Rishi Sunak announced that the election is going to be July 4th, I believe he said. But he's trying to get hundreds of Worker Party candidates in Parliament so that they will be the majority or could be the majority. And then they could nominate someone like George Galloway. So this kind of reminds me of the Justice Democrat strategy, but far more strategic. because Justice Democrats tried to change the Democratic Party. They went into one of the two parties. George Galloway started his own party, the Workers' Party. So that would be like third party in the UK, instead of trying to get hundreds of people to go through, labor or something like that, right? So I don't know if maybe George Galloway paid attention to what happened with Justice Democrats and then said, whoa, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe we should do something different, just totally outside of the two-party system. But ideally, this is a strategy that I think we should have had here in the United States. And his party, that Workers' Party, is actually growing quicker than I thought it was. So he goes a little bit deeper into this on LBC when he talks a little bit more about the plans and the strategy for this. Because I thought that this is actually pretty smart. If you think about it, if you really want to build up a third party, and we said before, like a third party movement, like that is what he is focusing on. And that is how Justice Democrats, in my opinion, would have been more effective if they had that mass movement outside of the two-party system. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand it is difficult for third parties. I totally get it. But this strategy that he's thinking about doing could actually work if they're able to get hundreds of people into parliament. We could see some change happen politically in the UK. I don't live in the UK. I say we, but I don't live there. But it's possible that this could work. So this was his appearance about 2 months ago on LBC, a Workers' Party to announce hundreds of candidates. Listen to this.
My colleague Henry Riley reported this morning your talks with two big-name Labour MPs, Claudia Webb, who's former Labour, and Tahir Ali. Are they going to join your merry band, Mr. Galloway?
Well, I hope actually that several MPs will, and there's even a Lord. You might say, why would we accept a Lord, Nick? But there's a Labour Lord who is in talks with us, and dozens of Labour councillors, including some that were fighting. We hope that this growing coalition of people who reject the two cheeks of the same backside politics that we've got in Britain. And we hope to play the role vis-à-vis Labour that Mr. Farage and the Reform Party are playing vis-à-vis the Tories. In other words, we hope to steal their breakfast, lunch and dinner.
What's your ambition? How many candidates do you hope to field, Mr. Galloway?
I'm going to present 200 of them outside Parliament this afternoon, including, you'll like this, Monty Panesar, the ace Indian cricketer, yes, former England international cricketer, who...
Pause for a second before he gets into more info about the cricketer. About 200 candidates. Now think about this, guys. Imagine if Justice Democrats had 200 candidates and it was a third party movement, right? So if you want a strong third party movement in this country, you are going to have strong candidates, but you need a lot of them if you wanted to make any type of dent within Congress. It may be a little bit easier in the UK than it is in the US. I'm not incredibly sure, but I will say this Workers' Party, you already have someone who already won. So it's not like George Galloway said, I'm going to start this movement and we're going to get hundreds of people in the parliament and do yada, yada. George Galloway waited until after he won with the third party and then says, okay, let's see how we can build this up. If I was able to get in, I believe hundreds more can be able to get in as well.
Be our candidate in Southall. We've got a former Conservative UKIP member of Parliament, member of the European Parliament, I should say. So people from left, right and centre are rejecting the Tweedledee, Tweedledum politics. Some of them are very, very interesting indeed. Monty, of course, was a great left arm spinner. And so we could do with him, Nick.
OK, what is it about your policies, do you think, that's attracting people such as Monty who want to skittle out the opposition come the general election?
Very well put. You'll hear me say that at 2 o'clock. The reality is that we are, if you like, Labour shorn of identity politics, infatuation with race and gender, wokery and greenery and quackery. We are the real deal. We do what we say on the tin. We stand up for the working people. And you and I are also working people. If we lost our wages, salary this week, this month, we'd be in trouble. And that's the great majority of people in this island. Our country's falling apart at the seams, Nick. We can't even control who comes into it. We lose track of the people who do. Can't defend the English Channel while we're sailing gunboats in the Red Sea. It's all gone to pot. Not since 1941 have we been in such a state. And so far, there's no Mr. Churchill to step into the breach.
You mentioned...
Let me pause here for just a second. So the Workers' Party, and how many times have you guys said that we need a Workers' Party here in the United States, right? Like, and I know we have, what's the one that's still a part of the Democratic Party? A Working Families Party. Like, that's still a part of the Democratic Party, but a third party that's just for the workers, right? So I've heard a lot of you say that's what we need here in the United States. But I think we need to pay attention to what is happening with this party in the UK, because it's not like this party is like 10 years old. From what I understand, it's only 4.5, 5 years old. This party is not that old. The Green Party has been around for decades. So look at how far they've already come with the Workers' Party already.
And a Labour Lord, you mentioned some others. Mr. Galloway, any chance of any other names that you can share with me now?
I can't. If it was just you and me, I would, but you have a considerable audience, deservedly
yes.
so. So I won't, if you'll forgive me. It's not seemly, but I can confirm that there are several Labour members of Parliament, one Labour Lord, and I'm going to say dozens, at least a dozen, Labour councillors who will defect either this week or more probably next. It's a growing party. We've quadrupled in size since my victory in Rochdale, when, as you well know, I got more votes than all the other major parties put together. Quite an achievement.
At the time.
Okay, did everybody hear that part? They have quadrupled since he won. So you see, this is what I was saying before. There's a lot of focus on the presidential election, and I know I talk about it as well, but I also bring on local candidates onto this show as well, because the thing is, obviously, you know, George Galloway ran for to be a member of parliament. Okay. And he won through the third party. Now that party gets more promotion and more press. I mean, didn't we all cover this when he won? I think like everybody covered this when he won, right? So it's a big deal. So if we had that same strategy here in the United States, we don't even have a third party member in Congress. We don't. We have some registered independents, and some of them became independents after they already were a part of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. But we don't really have, I know some people may say, what, Thomas Massey, isn't he still Republican, even though he's libertarian, but I think he's still with the Republican Party. We don't have it. We don't have Green Party members in Congress. You need one to win. You need one to get through to implement some type of a movement and change. So solely focusing on just the presidential elections, it actually takes attention away from the candidates that are running for those congressional seats that are running third party. This is why I recently had on the two young women that are running for congressional seats through the Green Party. These people need to come they need to be invited onto other shows. I know they haven't. I know what they've been invited to and where they haven't. They need to be invited onto other shows. And that's how you build the third party movement. But if your sole focus for a third party movement in this country is just on the presidential election, well, then you're not building that third party infrastructure at the local level, which is incredibly needed. That is important. George Galloway gave his speech yesterday, and he had quite a few things to say. Let's go ahead and dive into this, because he was doing the damn thing. He calls out Keir Starmer and many more.
Rivers of blood are running in Gaza
and Keir Starmer has supported it from the first day and until this day. And that is Keir Starmer's biggest problem. Because there are millions of people in this country of whom you are a mere snapshot. I make that point because most of the people in this audience are white English people. They try to tell you that the only people who care about beheaded children in Gaza are Muslims. That's a lie. All Muslims, of course, care about it. But millions of other British people care about it too.
Same thing here in the United States. They keep trying to make it seem like the only people that are at the pro-Palestinian protests are people that are, Muslim, when a lot of those protesters are Jewish protesters. Same thing here.
I estimate more than 5, maybe 7 million people in Britain are acutely distressed about what they're watching. And most of that 7 million used to vote Labour. In fact, Keir Starmer's counting on them to vote Labour. And if they don't vote Labour, how does he win any kind of landslide majority? Do the maths. If those millions vote for independence, like Jeremy Corbyn, for independence, like Andrew Feinstein, who's fighting Starmer, for the Workers' Party, like me, like Aroma, and the hundreds of other candidates that we are fielding. If those millions vote for us, I'll be in the running to be the Prime Minister of Britain, not Keir Starmer. And
so do you guys think that could happen? I know some of you that are watching live in the UK. Do you think that that could happen, right? Like millions of people in the UK voting for those Worker Party candidates. Do you think that this change could come? I don't live there, so I'm asking you guys. Do you think that this change could come? Like, how are you guys feeling? I mean, George Galloway did win. So it makes me wonder, is this going to bring about a big change in the UK?
So that's Starmer's biggest problem, and as so often, Shakespeare provides the words to describe the dilemma. That blood is on his hands. All the perfumes of Arabia cannot extinguish these damned spots of blood that are upon him. Moreover, he can't go on, he can't go back. Like Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon, steeped in blood so far that you cannot work out whether it is bloodier to go on or to go back. He can't change his unequivocal, without qualification, support for Zionism and Israel, because then the people he has so earnestly worked to bring to his side will turn against him.
Yep.
And neither is there a cost-free way of continuing. Every child that's murdered, every mother that is slaughtered, every father scrambling amongst the rubble, trying to find their loved ones, every one of those is a nail in the political reputation of Keir Starmer and the so-called Labour Party that it supports. So
we'll go ahead and pause it there. You can check out the full speech there. It's actually pretty long. It's on Sky News. It's George Galloway's Workers' Party of Britain launch election campaign. So check that out on Sky News. But he was interviewed right after this fiery speech. And I want you to hear some of the things that he said here.
Mr. Galloway, barely 3 months since your by-election and you're on the general election campaign trail. Tell us what you're hoping for the Workers' Party in this campaign.
Well, we're standing enough candidates that if everyone votes for them, I'll be the Prime Minister. So that's a big task in a very short period of time. We're only 4 years old, and the party only really took off in the Rochdale by-election.
So they're only, my correction, I think I said 4.5 years old. They're only 4 years old. And look at how far they've come already, right? They're moving pretty quickly and they are growing.
And yet we've managed to find all these hundreds of candidates. We're all self-funded, by the way, paying their own election expenses. And our party is 4 times bigger than it was 100 days ago. So our task is simple: to persuade the maximum number of people to vote for our policies of peace, equality, justice, an end to the slaughter in Gaza, and a new direction for Britain. It's all in our manifesto. I commend it to people. It's a sharp difference from the two cheeks of the same backside that Labour and the Conservatives represent.
I love how he calls it the two cheeks, because I always called it two wings of the same bird, but it's interesting to me how he calls it two cheeks of the same backside. Two cheeks.
Success look like for the Workers' Party on the 4th of July?
Well, a parliamentary breakthrough. We've got one elected member of parliament. We have to turn that into many.
How many is many?
I'd be extremely disappointed if it's not in double figures. How high the double figures would go, and I don't know. But if we can get, let me just pluck a number out of the air, if we can get 200,000 votes across the country, and maybe much more than that, we move up into the Premier League in parliamentary terms. We qualify for state financial support. We are allowed to table motions in the Commons, initiate debates, always be called at Prime Minister's question time, and so on. That will be important, especially if Starmer is the Prime Minister. Because if he's the Prime Minister, I'll be the leader of the real opposition. And everyone would be able to see that. I'll be the one speaking for the people that Labour has abandoned on a daily basis in Parliament with our MPs. That will begin to change politics in Britain forever.
So George Galloway essentially did what Justice Democrats could have done, right? Officially leave the two-party system and start this type of third-party movement. They had the energy, they had the money to do so. George Galloway also did what Bernie Sanders was too chicken to do. Leave the two-party system officially. Yes, he's a registered independent, but he still caucuses with the Democrats and he still runs with the Democratic Party, and build a third-party movement. And I wish we had voices like George Galloway and Claire Daly. I wish we had those types of political figures in our country, people who are not afraid to stand up to the duopoly and call it out for what it is. So this is huge news. I wish George the best of luck. I know this is not something that is easy to do, but hey, you got to give claps for trying to do something different and just to break away from that system. So I can never, fault him for trying to do that. And we'll have to see what happens.